Okay, hey everybody, this is Jessica Lightheart, aka the Earth Lady, and I'm going to teach you the ins and outs of worms. Real quick so that you know, the reason that I introduce myself like that and start all my lives that way is because then I get into the zone. So, I don't know, you see if a couple of you guys are going to jump on here. So, we'll wait a minute and then we'll talk about worms. By the way, for Rhonda and her friend Sherry, you guys did fantastic. Thank you for sharing all that wonderful information. I'm sure that there were others that enjoyed it just as much as I did. So we're going to wait a couple minutes and you guys should jump on. She's sending me a link. Is she? Oh, yep, there it is. Okay, that's informing everybody. You guys will hop on in a minute. I start my videos like right when I hit the live button. I don't wait around because I've done learned about videos and how to present yourself, and it says that you're not supposed to keep people waiting, and there's a lot of ins and outs to it. I'm a research freak, okay? So, I'm just waiting for you to hop on and should say hi so that I know you're there because it's not showing any numbers. So if you are on, say hi so I can see you. And then we'll get started. So I don't even have radio on right now, so it's like dead silent. And the fish tank is not bubbling because I'm in the midst of treating my fish and cleaning the tanks and all that fun stuff that's so hectic. So I'm just waiting to see you say hi and then I will start. So I'm not seeing any comments or anything, so I don't know. Say hi. Says there's a poor connection, but I don't know. Yeah, my internet's fine. I'm not seeing any comments. Are you out there? Say hi if you are. I know we've had technical difficulties already today, so we'll see if you guys get on, because I'm not seeing you, but that doesn't mean you're not there. So I had to leave a couple of times. Okay. I see you, Hazel. So, yeah, it just said bad connection, and then it clicked back, and then it said it again. So, I don't know if Facebook's being funny, or perhaps it's just we are just that full of energy that we're having technical difficulties. I'm not exactly sure. So, and I know Rhonda was just talking about her magnets to distract the energy. I've been playing with my magnetized hematite all night, so that's quite crazy. So, yeah, it's saying that we're having a bad connection. Okay, now the comments are here. The comments option wasn't there for me. Wasn't there? Oh my. We're good now? Okay. So, we're hoping. It's the Schumann frequency, guys. It's that we're no longer on the same resonance. I agree so much with Sherry on some of the things she was saying and the electronics. Yeah, this is, I don't know. We'll turn up the light here just for you guys, and I'll make sure that my sound's up so you can hear me. I leave the light down. So, I'm gonna get started and we'll see how far we get and if anybody else jumps on or if it's just gonna be that you have to rewatch it. So I hope you don't get seasick. We're gonna move around a bit now that I know we're getting going. And I'm going to take you to the cat room and teach you about worms. So, let's go to the cat room. Alrighty. So one of the things I want you to know is that I live in eastern Tennessee. Our temperatures are pretty decent. I mean, they're cold, and we've had some freezing weather recently, but nothing that bad. The thing that's different about here from up in Illinois and other places is that when we get snow, it doesn't stick. It doesn't stay. So we have a big snowstorm. It only snows for a couple of hours, or, you know, when it stops snowing, it just starts melting and goes away. It doesn't stay. So, I did a video actually when we first moved here about the weather and the snow, because they said it doesn't snow down here. So when it did, there were these big, huge, white, fluffy clouds, snowflakes, and we had like 2.5 inches of snow on the ground. And so I was like, wow, guys, check out the snow. And 3 hours later when I went to take the dogs out, there was no snow. And so I did a live and I'm like, guys, 3 hours ago we had 2.5 inches and now where's the snow? I actually titled that video, Where's the Snow? It was quite funny. So, in the cat room is where all my storage stuff is. Anyways, about our worms. So I live in Tennessee. I went up to Illinois for 2.5 months. I took my worms with. It was freezing weather up there. And they had some snow and everything else. And, cause it was October, November, and part of December. And so with that, I thought the worms would freeze. And they didn't. And so, I was fascinated. And then I brought them home back down here to Tennessee with me, and they weren't dead. Like, they did not freeze to death. You cannot kill worms. Their system slows down almost like a hibernation, but they don't die. I mean, the only way I've found, well, there's 2 ways that I've learned so far for them to die. Is one, to not be wet, to not stay moist, because that's what helps them slither through the dirt, and that's what they call the worm castings. Their body stays hydrated and they shed the outer layers of their skin as they go through and as they poop and pee, because they excrete all their toxics that their body doesn't need through their skin. So either let them dry out and they will die. I haven't tried to put one in water to see if it comes back alive. Maybe I should do that. But then the other thing is, don't put them in too much water because they will drown. And I learned that by trying to feed them to the goldfish, and they drowned. They did not actually survive. My grandma is very South Texas, got 3 inches of snow. Hell, that's more than I have up here in the Rockies. All right, straight. Zuby worms. Yeah. So yeah, they kind of squiggle, whatever you want to call it. I have different sound effects. So anyways, I brought them back down here because I use their worm castings, which is their pee and their poop and the topsoil basically in their worm bin. I use that to fertilize all of my seeds and my crops. I use it for all kinds of stuff. For your yard and everything. So, and I'll tell you about DE because that's something that I actually use in my worms. I know that Rhonda and Sherry were just talking about the tenacious earth. It's food grade tenacious earth. It's a powder. I'll show you. I got a bag over there. But I use that in my worms. And I'll tell you why. Because if you put the wrong things in your worm bin and they're not buried enough, they will cause different kinds of what I like to call parasites. They're a bug. But bacteria is also a bug, and that's part of the reason why I have the worms, is because they have bacteria in the soil. Hi, Paula. And so when you have to have bacteria in the soil and have your soil aerated for plants. Worms actually eat the dead roots and stuff, so they're good to have in your pots as long as you have a good enough pot and you're not drowning them and stuff like that. You know, you still got to replace the soil every so often, so that, because they'll breed. They breed like rabbits. Don't ever get a lot of worms, okay? I went to, I think it was either Walmart or the bait shop. I got a dozen worms. Now a dozen is 12. I got 12 worms in this little bitty bowl, and I put them in the worm bin, and I started feeding them and everything. And in about a year, I had over 5,000. So they breed worse than rabbits. They're constantly breeding, and so you don't need a lot to start them, and they'll just breed. Especially, here's the thing. If you keep the temperatures right, they're constantly breeding. If it's too cold, they slow down. If it's too hot, it can burn them, and they can have health problems, which causes them to either shrivel up and die, or your soil goes bad. It will turn toxic, and we're going to talk about that. So, I'm going to turn you around so you can see. This is my big tote. And it's the size of the blue one. Now I have one inside of the other one, and I'll explain why that is. Because your worms need drainage. So when you have worms, this one's got holes I just drilled in the bottom. In a worm bin, and I'll show you this. In a worm bin, you have a crate. You have multiple crates, and I didn't really clean this one because I just emptied to travel, and now I'm refilling it. So, okay, so it has to have vents so that this is the worm part of the worm bin, and that's so that the worms can come up and eat all the food, do their peeing and pooping, and go back down in the soil and do what worms do. Okay, so at the top of your bin, you always want to have some sort of paper, because you want to cover your food and all the things that you're feeding them and compost, so that it doesn't cause mold on the top, draw bugs of unnecessary, or have the wrong mold grow on it as it's decomposing. Some mold is good mold, some mold is not good mold. And I haven't had a problem with that yet. Mark it on the calendar. But, you know, it's trial. I've been doing this for a couple of years, and people think I'm crazy. But that's okay. So, in this bin, it's full of shredded paper. Now, this is the paper I have covering it. And if you look close, you'll see that it is moist and damp. It's all bad mail that I've shredded up. And in here is a couple of pieces of celery that were going bad. So, we're going to pull this back a hair. And I did not bring the rake, so we'll see what we can do. Oh, look. Here. Can you see? Oops, let's see if I can turn the flash on. Oh, no flash. No flash. But anyways, I don't know if you can even see it. There goes the... But here we go. Ready? In here are my worms. And if you look close, you can see how that soil is nice and black. Okay. That's good worm casting compost. Okay. Now, here, I'll turn you around so I can manage the camera. Mind you, I'm not working with a phone. I'm working with a great big tablet that is the size of a notebook. Okay, here is one of the babies. You'll see it's just a little bitty one. Now, if you can see how they're red, that's because he's called a red wiggler. They're not the big fat earthworms. These are red wigglers. Now, this one's not a good example, so give me a second to pull out one that is. Okay. Are you a baby too? Yeah. Oh, I got lots of babies up here. Feeding time. Okay, hang on. Let's move a little bit more dirt. Here we go. Alrighty. Now, clean you off a minute. Let's see. Okay, right here you are. Alright, so, if you see this worm, they say that where the bump is, if you can see it, all worms have this bump. Maybe. There you go. See the little white spot? He's not as good of an example because he's still small. Give me a minute. I'll rake up some dirt here. We got lots of new baby worms right on the top, which is really good. That means that they're happy and well taken care of. And they probably all just laid eggs. Okay, here we go. Here's a better example. Okay, down here where that little white bump is, when he crinkles up, see how you can see that white bump? Okay, that white bump right there is not its heart. You cannot cut a worm in half and get two. That's an old myth. It's not true. You cannot cut a worm in half and it will not grow. The ends will not grow back and it will not be two worms. So, trust me, it's not worth trying it. Anyway, so, yeah, the little white part is where their egg sac is. That fills up with eggs and then they come to the top of the soil and they lay their eggs. Because that's where most of the other things aren't bothering them, I guess. So, and this actually needs a little bit of water. But before that, I'm going to show you what I do. So, give me 2 seconds. Because we need the one process I told you I'd tell you about. The DE. It's called tenacious earth. It is, mine is food grade for cattle. And I just, I use it in this because you can see it's getting dusty. Because I use it in the cat litter box. I put this in the cat litter and it, ask a kid what it is. Yeah. Yeah, ask a kid what is. DE? I don't know. But, anyways, I put the DE in there to kill any parasites that are on the top. This one seemed to have a couple of crawlies. And you could see how the paper was not saturated. You don't want it soaking wet. You just want it damp. So that it breaks down. It keeps moisture in the bucket. Because they have to stay moist. Same way with soil. You know, you can't grow anything in dry soil. You have to have it moist. Worms are a living thing. I mixed everything with this big old water bottle that I just have hanging around. So that's my old bucket that I traveled with. You can't kill them really, unless you're drowning them or unless you're pretty much drying them out. They'll live forever. Like I said, I took them all the way up to Rockford, Illinois, 900 miles away. They sat in the garage out in the freezing weather for 2.5 months, and then I brought them all the way back down here to Tennessee, And I have twice as many now as when I went there. So once you get worms, you don't ever have to worry about buying them again. Trust me. So now we're going to loosen up the actual worm bin. The worm bin. Earlier I posted a picture about all the ins and outs. What to and what not to do. Okay. Remember to get out. Remember going out in the rain. Okay. Raining nights. Finding them. Yeah, that's cool. Okay. Yeah, you put them in with your pots because it does aerate the soil and it's good for them. I mean, and if you have decent pots and if you mulch at all or put anything on the top of your topsoil, then you're great. I mean, you pull away the covering, which usually is mulch, put in whatever food or whatever that you're going to put on the soil, then put a little bit of paper on it, and then put your mulch back. It will disintegrate and stuff, and it brings all the worms up. They eat all that food, so you're aerating the soil. You're giving your crops more room to grow, so your dirt's not getting all soggy and clumped together. But in the group, I posted this picture, and it tells you what to and what not to do in the worm bin. Okay? Don't moisten it too thick, you'll drown them. Don't let it get too dry, because they'll dry out and die. Feeding mixture, kitchen scraps, 50-50. That's 50% kitchen scraps, 50% fiber. That's why I always keep paper or cardboard on the top, and then I feed them the food underneath, and then in the bin you can actually segment it, and I'm going to show you that in a minute. And you can feed them just about anything. There are some things like meat. Meat goes in a compost, not in a worm bin. The reason for that is it has a different bacteria that causes it to compose and so, or decompose. So the worms don't like that. It's kind of toxic to them. So things like meat, or the big one is you don't want to give them a lot of citrus, or starch. They really don't like starch. Starch is not good for them. That's oats, grains, wheats, potatoes, chips, things like that. You put that in a hot compost outside, because that's going to have that hot bacteria, like hamburger, like a meat, and any of the meats. Meat decomposes different from living plants and stuff. Okay, so, and it does change the pH as well as the temperature. So they say put a pound of worms in this bin. I had over 1,000. I didn't even weigh them. I just started shoveling the dirt in. So God only knows how many's in there. And I dumped it out. I had Ben help me dump out all the trays. And I just had some icky water with a little bit of worm left in there. And I added my soil so I could carry all my potting soil, because I took my plants with me. So I threw out in the backyard all of them that were in the actual worm bin. So I had maybe a dozen in there, in this bucket I took with me. Okay, avoid overfeeding. So for every pound of worms, you want a half a pound of food a day. You don't have to feed them every day. You don't have to feed them every week. You don't have to feed them every month. They will eat when you feed them, so you don't have to worry about that. If you see that you're feeding them a lot and the food's not starting to decompose, stop feeding them, because you're feeding them too much. And it doesn't have time to break down so that they can eat it. They're a worm. They don't have teeth. So they just kind of absorb it through their skin too. So avoid citruses, meats, dairies in your worm factory. They don't like a lot of that. Because again, that causes the pH and the heat of your soil to raise. You don't want that. Moisture. Worms require moist bedding. See instructions on the manual. Moisturize with a spray bottle. And if it gets too soft and wet, just stop moisturizing it for a while. Okay, the important thing, I don't go by this because obviously I took them all the way to Illinois in freezing weather and brought them back, and they didn't die. But they're happiest. Your worms will be the happiest if the temperature of your worm bin is between 40 and 80 degrees. Okay? So as long as it's in a cool location, you know, and it's pretty much moist, you know, come in and spritz it every once in a while, you're good to go. Okay, worm list. We're food list. We're gonna go over that real quick, and then I'm gonna show you the bin. I know it seems like forever, but this is important stuff you need to know if you're gonna have worms, because you don't want to start out and set yourself up for failure. Okay, worms like their food chopped as small as possible, and the bowl is over here. We're actually going to feed them today, and this is egg salad and tomato soup. So I mixed it all up so it's nice and liquidy, and we're just going to drizzle some in there, and that's what they're going to get for food. So what do you feed them? Okay, exactly. You feed them anything and everything. Sign is backwards for us. Oh, okay. I did post it in the group chat earlier today, but when I'm done, I'll go ahead and post it there again, so that way you have it, and you should be able to click on it and save it as a photo, and then go back to it. But you can feed them things like fruits, vegetables, fruits as long as they're not citrus. You don't want to put a lot of citrus. That is acidy. We're having lots of connection problems today. Same way with, you don't want to use a lot of apple cider vinegar. So if you use apple cider vinegar in a spray bottle, make sure you don't get them confused. And this is part of the composting. Yes, it's part of the composting. You got to know what you can put in a worm bin and what you can't, because everything else goes into an actual compost. That's called your hot compost. That's where you're going to put your meats and bones, bigger sticks, stuff like that. Anything that, like your eggshells. If you want it to actually do any good for your plants, then it has to feed the soil. Well, if they're full eggshells, it's gonna take longer for it to decompose and neutralize your soil, provide your soil with nutrition. So the smaller it is, the faster it's going to decompose and do its job. Okay? Coffee grounds. Yes, you can give them coffee grounds. Actually, I have a neighbor who drinks a lot of coffee and eats a lot of eggs, so they save their coffee grounds and their eggshells, and twice a week they bring them to me. So I keep them in containers, and then I feed them, you know, periodically. But you don't want to give them a lot of starch. Because starch causes, they call it a grain mite or a wheat mite. They're teeny tiny little bitty things, and they're white, and they're almost impossible to see. They can get way out of control, way fast. I have had that problem, and that is why I revert to the tenacious earth. And this is actually calcium. Tenacious earth is natural phytoplankton, which is stuff that grows in the ocean that when it hits the air, then it starts to dry out, similar to a shell. And then they grind it up, so it's a very fine powder, like your baby powder. But it simulates, it's kind of like silicone. It does the job of a silicone. Silicone is very sharp and absorbs. With it being as fine as it is, it's very fine. To us, it feels like powder. To insects, it feels like shards of glass. Because it's a powder, it's very fine. It cuts them up and dries them out. That's why if you, like she said, if you have fleas, if you have ticks, if you have roaches, anything that has an exoskeleton, even bees, so please don't use it on your bees, but anything that has an exoskeleton, it will kill because it's like shards of glass and it gets in their cracks and crevices, just like sand gets in our nooks and crannies, and it dries them, it cuts them up, and it dries them out. It kills them. They cannot get immune to it. So you don't have to worry about changing your poison to get rid of whatever parasite you might have in your house, because it doesn't get immune to the poison. It cuts it up, it kills it, and there you're done. If you have an annoying neighbor that has roaches all the time, then you make sure you keep stock in your Dime Tenacious Earth. Coffee grounds is a great one. I was actually just getting to that. They like healthy snacks, coffee grounds, coffee filters, crushed up eggs, crushed up eggshell, tea bags without the staples. They do not like metals. It's not good for your soil. You don't give them paper, plastics. You give them papers and cardboard. You don't want to give them, you've seen all the shredded paper in there. That's all my junk mail. No glossy paper at all, because glossy is contaminants and they can't break it down. No paper that is so saturated with ink that you can't tell it's white. If it's just some writing or advertisement, that's fine. No paper, no paper that's saturated with a lot of ink, like big pictures. Okay, that's just a lot of ink. You don't want to put that in your soil. You don't go around saturating yourself in ink, so you don't want to saturate your worms. You know, and then they love leaves, but you got to be careful, because if you're getting leaves from somebody else, you don't know if they have fleas, and then that's another problem you'll have to deal with. Plant trimmings. Oh, they love my plant trimmings. When we have leaves that grow brown, or when they die for the season, I chop them up and I give them in here, and these guys love that. They will eat compost too. Compost. Wood chips, it just takes longer for them to eat, because it takes longer for them to actually digest it, break it down so that they can digest it. So, yeah. Potatoes, pancakes, rice, pizza crust, cereal, crackers, breads are a no. Shredded paper, egg cartons, as long as they're not plastic. Peanut shells, they do like peanut shells. Again, magazines, as long as it's not the glossy stuff. Kleenex, napkins, cardboard, junk mail, all of that, I shred it and I put it right in the worms. What I don't use, like all the other thicker inks, I have a pile of, and we're going to do a compost. Hopefully Ben's going to let me do one again this year, so I'll actually show you a hot compost. That one's going to be fun, because I've only done one other time, and we had, it was out in the backyard, and it was full of everything from turkeys to pumpkins, and that's before I had my worm bin, so it was a mess. So let's go see the worm bin itself. So let's tell you a little bit about our worm bin. Our worm bin is just a cool little guy. He's got all these different trays, as I was showing you, and I can't do it one-handed, but we might be able to put you right there. Okay, so our worm bin has containers, and I'm going to hope that you can see them. On the second layer, and as soon as I get them, I had a tote on the worm bin so that the cats don't dig up the worm bin, because otherwise the cats will dig up the worm bin. So now we'll show you the top of the worm bin. Has the same shredded paper, and underneath here you can see this is a lot wetter. because I just saturated that. And then we have some of the food that's decomposing. And I think this is the asparagus, I believe. And it sat in some sort of peels. But I couldn't tell you what they are right now because I have no idea. That's how long ago I fed them. I fed them big chunks of this stuff and it's not. So now, if you give me a second, we're going to get to the second level of the worm bin, where you get to see the worms again. And in here, you see all those white specks everywhere? That is actually the eggshells. I grind them up with a magic bullet grinder. I dry them and then I grind them up, and here we go. Yeah. There's your worm. But I grind them up in the magic bullet and then I just powder the top of it and cover it with the paper. Now see, because these have holes in the bottoms, and I'm doing this in thin layers instead of thicker layers, because you can grow, you can put quite a bit of stuff in one of these totes, one of these trays. But what I want you to see is look how fine this is, how fluffy and fine. This is what farmers call black gold. Okay, they call that black gold, and the reason is because it's the perfect soil for your plants. Light and fluffy, just moist enough that it's sticking to your hands but not saturated. You can see my hands are not wet. See how fine that is? That is a farmer's dream. When you have black gold for your soil, you know that no matter what crops you're putting in there, they're going to thrive and they're going to do well. As long as you continue to keep the soil properly taken care of, then you will have amazing plants. I don't know if Paula's ever told you about our tomato incident last year. I had a friend helping me, a neighbor, and she got my soil, my black gold, and I mixed it up for her with some, we had fish water, algelic fish water, rainwater out of a rain barrel, and peat moss that we added to the black gold. And she put that in the seed starter containers and planted tomatoes for me. I gave her 72 little holes and we had 87 tomato plants grow. She thought she had to fill them all. So let's get to another tray so I can show you all the different phases so you can see. That way you know what it's supposed to look like. If you start out with a tote instead of a worm bin, because worm bins are kind of expensive, if you start out with a tote, just make sure that there are holes in the bottom of it for drainage. And like I said, I have my tote inside of another one so that it catches all of the drainage, and then that's what we call worm. That's called worm tea, and that is actually what I water all of my plants with. So in this next tote, you'll see there's a little bit of the paper still left over that hasn't decomposed. Here's more of this beautiful dirt. I don't know if you can see that. You can see this is a little bit moister. It's not quite ready yet because it clumps up. And this has been a couple months now, and I don't know if you can see down in there. Can you see? There's a little one right there. There's another one right there. Here's some more over here. These are the worms. They do not like a lot of light, but and the reason it looks like it's all moving, the screen is moving, it's because that's how many worms I have. There's baby worms on the top there. You just can't quite see. So the further down in the soil you get, the more you're going to find your babies and everything else. Now the reason we had babies in the top of the other tote was because that's been sitting for a while, so there's no direction that they've been trained to go in. Where these have been in here a while, they know food's on top, so they just keep going. And then the very bottom, which is what I wanted to show you the most, because this is the most important part, so that you understand why you have to have the drainage. Okay. As it goes down, you'll see this is at a funny angle. I don't know if you can actually see it. It tilts down. And there is a faucet right here. And it's not going to show it, and I got my light all the way up. But there's a faucet right here. And you turn it to close it. I leave it open so you got the aeration. It drips down the actual, we actually got some today. So let's close it up a minute and I will show you. Holy Hannah, it's a lot fuller than I thought. And here is the water and the worm pee. This is telling me that my worm bin is a little bit too wet, because you can see through that it's more of a water, not a darker color. And you want it to be a darker color to get all the nutrients and everything out of it. So, that's the worm bin, and that's half of composting. Because that's the half that nothing, you know, I tell you, I'm the earth lady. Nothing in my house gets thrown away if I can reuse it. If I can repurpose it. If I can find a way to do something with it or recycle it back into the earth. Because that's what we're supposed to be doing. We're not supposed to leave all this garbage. We're not supposed to contaminate the world that we live in. I forgot to show you me feeding these worms. But, yeah. I reuse everything. All my junk mail, I don't throw it away. I have a paper shredder. And even though I just sprayed all of this, I'm going to show you. When you have a worm bin, you can feed them on the top and they can move up and down. When you have a worm tote, again, you make sure that you have plenty of drainage on the bottom, because otherwise if it doesn't have air and drainage, it smells. And nobody wants stinky worms or anything stinky in their house. And so, you separate the bed. We'll give you a haul view here. You separate this tote into segments. So you split it in half this way, you split it in half this way. Now, because of all the worms that I have, and if I have any problems I can shift them over to the other bin, I just cut it in half here. And I'm going to feed this part, put the food on this part and cover it up with some of the paper, and the next time I go to feed them, then I'll feed this side. So that way, one, the food has plenty of time to decompose and do its job. The worms have plenty of time to eat and do their job. And you don't run out of places to feed them. And that way, if you do ever get any potatoes or starches or something gets into your worm bin that's not supposed to, For instance, we have a food scraps bucket. So cool, sis. When we get our house, I'm definitely doing this. Cool. So yeah, we have and if you have any questions or you need any help, just ask. I've been doing this for a while. It's not that hard. Ben, on the other hand, he's not so good at this. And we have to feed the other bin, so give me a second. So he throws all the table scraps into the table scrap thing, and I have to sort them. I didn't do such a good job one day, and he put a lime in there. They didn't like that. So, the good thing is I only put it on one square, or one half of the bin, and not the entire bin. So they didn't get too burned, because the lime is citric. It is an acid, and they don't like that. It causes problems. So, yep, you just stick this on in there. And with the worm bin now, I do this in layers, or in racks, so, or trays, they call them trays, I guess. But, I do it this way, and then I just leave it be. Now, once the food is all decomposed, then I will go ahead and take the paper out of the top tray, put it on the worms after all the food's decomposed, and then I will put some more food on top of that paper so that they keep eating that, and then just keep putting more paper on it. Paper, or I use brown paper, I use paper bags. Just, and I have found that if you limit the, the sticky part on the envelopes, the gluey part, if you limit that and not put as much of that in, and you put more of just the papers, it works better. They seem to be happier, and their worm castings and everything are a lot healthier. The soil stays darker. So I'm not sure what's in the glue. A lot of my envelopes I just throw away instead of shred them. But it's up to you. I mean, try it out, see what you think. And here, let me show you real quick before I let you go. Here's what I do with my eggs. I told you I have a lot of madness. So, with my eggs, I'll stick you up here on the stove so that you're stable. Okay, when we cook with eggs, we crack the egg, and we have an egg bowl. I used to have a basket, and I think one of the dogs ate it. So we put the eggshells in the egg bowl. They finally dry out, and they get hard and crunchy and split. That's when you know they're dry enough. They're not going to be sticky and gooey. So then for the worms and for any compost, I crunch them up and put them in the egg jar. And then I just periodically throughout the day, whenever I get a chance, I just come through. I used to have a spoon in here, and I pound them. Sometimes it's good for anger management. And I've done a couple videos on that. If you have a lot of anger and you just need to get anger out, or you're frustrated or whatever, we drink pop here. Soda pop, whatever you want to call it. Ben's addicted to Mountain Dew. And since I do a lot of traveling, I am too. So, the cardboard that you get from the pop boxes, I break them down, and for my anger management or frustration, a way that I release it is I tear it into little bitty pieces. So, and I can do the same thing here. I can sit on the couch and watch a movie or whatever, which I don't do anymore, and crush my eggshells. So I'm killing two birds with one stone. He wants me to watch the Idiot Box, and I have things to do. So let's crunch up some eggshells so we can be productive. Once they get to this stage, then I get out my bullet, my magic bullet, and I grind them into a very fine powder, and I jar them, and I just basically grind them up, dump them here, you can see, and that way, if you can see, it's a very fine powder. And when you open them or shake them, there's dust that comes out because it's that fine. Again, this can be used too, but use this for your garden, stuff like that. If you have chickens, you have to bake it. So once it's grounded like this, it's easier to bake. So if you have chickens and you want the instructions on how to bake your eggshells so you can give that to them instead of the shells you have to buy at the store, let me know, because I have a secret to that too. So after you do the eggshells, and like I said, that's how we have our eggs our process here. And yeah, see, and these I just ground yesterday and knew I was going to do a worm thing, so it's in here, and I just use the regular flat blade. Give it a couple pumps, boop, 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 till it's all powder. And then I store it in a jar. When I'm ready to use it, I feed it to the worms. I put it out in the garden. If if you have a lot of gardener snakes, put some eggshells in there. That brings the pH down a hair. That will cause them to start getting out of your yard. And then some lime, if you use pelletized lime, which I haven't figured out how to make that yet, so I don't advertise that. But some pelletized lime does help bring the pH down to where gardener snakes no longer come to your yard. So, and then we're gonna, before I promised you I would show you the food grade dime tenacious earth. So that's the last part, and then I'll let you go because I'll ramble on forever. Okay, let's see if we can get to it. This, where I have my worms, is also where I store all of my stuff, from different cooking gizmos and gadgets and pans and pots and all of my shop's supplies. This is also the cat room, so everything has to be wrapped in plastic. So I'm not going to be able to get to it. Is Beth still watching? Hey Beth, are you still online? Mom? If my mom's watching, I know she's got some that she could take a picture of it. Otherwise, I will look for the picture in my photos and I'll post it so you know what it looks like. And it's very hard to actually pronounce, and so it's fun to watch everybody else when they say it. And so they use, most everywhere says it's DE, okay? And it will even kill bed bugs. That's how I first learned about it. Oh, by the way, I do not use tap water in my worms or my compost to keep it moist. I use fish water. If you have not seen any of my other videos, this is my big old fish tank. It's a 55-gallon pane, and this over here is the 40-gallon that our 2 goldfish are left in. Oh, great, you are here. Beth, can you take a picture of your DE and post it in the group for me, please, so I don't have to try and crawl under all that crap and get mine out? Otherwise, I'll look in my photo gallery and see if I can find it. When I went to Illinois, I had 5 fish. When I came back, I have 2. Apparently, when I left, the entire house fell apart. The fish committed suicide. They, one by one, jumped out of the tank. I had baby guppies that were breeding. And I have I breed guppies because guppies eat mosquitoes and mosquito larvae. So if you don't want mosquitoes in your yard, make a little pond and get you some guppies and you're good to go. So yeah, we have fish. I use fish water to water all of my plants. Once a month I use the worm tea at the bottom, the juice that comes out of the worm bin, and I mix that 1 part worm tea, 3 parts fish water, so that it's not too strong, because it can get pretty strong. The darker it is, the stronger it is. Water it, dilute it. That way you're not burning the roots of your plant. But and that's what I mix that, and I water all my plants. So, with that being said, I think I've covered everything. Here's one I'll tell you. Do not. I will tell you what not to get, because Ben thought he was doing a good job. Sweet man. And see if I can put this up here. At least this will teach you how to spell it, okay? Do not get this kind of DE. And I'll hold it here for a minute. So if you want to screenshot this, tenacious earth. This is not the food grade tenacious earth, but this is how you spell it. Okay? Now, like I said, this is not the food grade tenacious earth, so we do not use it. He has to take it back because it has artificial chemicals in it, and I refuse to use anything that has artificial chemicals in it. So with that being said, that is the ins and outs to worms and my worm bin. And as soon as, like everyone else is cold. We are also cold down here. We're at 41, so we're not as cold as some of you. But we still can't get out there and do much. And the only thing that I have left to feed my worms to, here's my little secret. If you can see, right there, if you can see that clump right there, that is my baby dinosaur. And its name is Spike. It's an alligator snapping turtle that I got from family up in Illinois because they thought I was the earth lady and I could take better care of it. So I will take good care of it until it gets too big and Ben says I have to get rid of it so it doesn't snap my finger or my arm off, because they are snapping alligator turtles. So they can be aggressive and inconvenient, but for now he's my new pet like everything else. And since I got you here, there's one cat. That's Sylvia. Ben calls her Dick Face, so I punch him all the time. This is my mischievous Mr. Binks. He has a dual personality, so he also has the name of Kitty. And when he's naughty, we know that his naughty part comes out. This is my big girl. Hybrid Shepherd and Husky mix. This is my Beagle Jack Russell mix. This is Buttercup. Chance is the other one, the big black one. And that right there is my little Jack Russell Chihuahua mix, Angel. So now you've seen my entire zoo. and the worms. So yeah, you've actually seen my entire mini zoo. So that's what I got for you today. If you have any questions or any concerns, you want to know more about it, about worms, starting worms, what you need, let me know. You want more information on tenacious earth? I can actually do a live if you want on how I put it in the cat and dog's food, how I take care of the cat box with it. We have it, not anymore, but we did have it all around our counters because it is human safe. It is food grade. You can have it around your children. They can put it in their mouth. The animals, you can put it in their, you can put it in your food. You can put it in the animal's food. You can put it on the animals. If your animal has a bad infestation of fleas, or if it has, what do they call that disease? It's actually a mite, but mange. If you find an animal that has mange or something like that, you can cover the animal. Make sure that you cover its face with a towel or something, because you do not want to inhale it. It is very fine, like a baby powder. And so if you inhale it or you snort it like it's a drug, it's going to cut up and dry your lungs. Okay? So make sure you're not doing that. But use it properly. So cover their nose with a towel, or their face with a towel, and you can take this, powder them down. When I actually do it on my girls, I usually do it outside. Otherwise, if I'm inside, as I'm powdering it, I'll have Ben blow in their face so that they're not inhaling that dusty air. Just a light, nothing. You don't want to scare them or nothing. Otherwise, like the cats, now I have to do the cats myself because they are ornery and I'm the only one that seems to be able to handle them. So I blow in their face and I powder them. You don't want them to inhale it, but it is good for you and it does help heal you. So yeah, Hazel, if you want me to do a live on that, I can do that. Just let me know when, and I'll set it up so I can do that. Yes, it is good to see you, Paula, even though you're just writing the comments. I love you and miss you. And yes, I know you know all about my worms, Paula. For all of you who don't know, you already know Beth is my mom. Well, Paula is my everything. Paula is my sister, my accountability partner, because that's actually how we met, was through a different business we were both doing, and we were keeping each other accountable. We've grown to be friends and sisters, and when I went up to Illinois, I got to meet her in person, and it was just amazing. So if anybody ever gets up by Kenosha, Wisconsin, go visit Paula. She is such a doll. I love her to bits and pieces. And if anything ever happened to her, I think that my world would fall apart. So, anyways, with that, does anybody have any questions? I mean, I try to cover everything. And a couple people have told me that I need to talk down because I take a lot for granted. I post pictures of my healing crystals and stuff, and they're like, who knows what a healing crystal is? Because I just assume that you know what I do, so here's what I'm doing right now. So if you have questions or anything, make sure you ask. The first time I did the composting with the worm bins, I forgot to tell people how to crush up the eggshells. And so the neighbor tried, and that was a mess. And she followed my instructions step for step, except for I left out a portion. So she's like, why is this got eggshells poking out everywhere? Well, I guess I forgot to tell you how to do that part. So yeah, if there's anything I forget, or if you have questions, feel free to ask. I'm always here. I am very busy, but I'm always here, and I'm always looking for more things to learn and share what I've already learned. So Since it doesn't look like I'm not seeing very many comments, so you probably are just really quiet. But I'll go back and watch the replay and see if I missed comments. So if you don't have no questions, then I'm going to let you go. I know it's 10:30 here, so I'm not sure what time it is where you guys are. And I thought Paula said it's 3 degrees there. Holy cow. Oh, yours is all gone. Okay, I'll try and find my picture, Mom. 3 degrees feels like 13 below. So it's cold here. And it's snowing again. Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry, Paula. You guys are really getting dumped on this year. So, guess it's time for you to move down here. I've been trying to get you down here. You'll love it, really. And then we can be garden partners. I'll put all my worms in your garden and we'll garden together, and then you could teach me how to do all this canning. And together we'll sell all of our products so that everybody else can be healthy and happy, and ta-da, everything goes good. I'm working on being a free company, but right now I'm on a fixed income, and so Ben pays my way for everything that I want, and I just take care of him and my zoo and everything else. But that's all I got for you tonight on worms. I know Hazel wanted to know about the body butter I make. So I'll do one, whenever you want. I got tomorrow night open or whatever. We'll make arrangements. But I'll do one on my body butter, so that way you understand why I make it, how I make it, and what's in it, the why I make it, to help people organically. And Paula loves my body butter. I can't keep a lot of body butter. When I'm here in Tennessee, it's hard to keep the body butter because a lot of people don't like to pay the shipping and handling, so they order lumps of it, like quantities. But when I'm up in Rockford, it's hard to keep up with demand because they're buying it faster than I can make it. So it is well worth it. A little goes a very long way. And once you try my body butter, you'll be hooked for life, because your entire body will feel so much better. It builds your inside system as well as your outside system. And when you feel good through and through, then your light can shine and you can do bigger, better things and move forward with life. So, anyways, I've jabbered long enough. I love you all. Thank you for letting me share more information with you. Like I said, if you have any questions or concerns, let me know. If you just want to see more stuff and don't want to watch me moving around, you can go and watch my YouTube channel. I just changed the name of it, so let me make sure that's fixed, and then I'll post it for you guys. But yeah, most all my lives I save them and put them on the YouTube channel, so that way everybody learns what I know. Excuse me. So I hope you all have a fantastic evening. Get some good, well-needed rest. I'm going to try, and we'll all have another good day tomorrow. Till then, I hope that you have a fantastic evening. Love you all. Ciao now.